They say blood is thicker than water, but what happens when your own family treats you like you're already buried? I'm about to tell you what I did when my daughter-in-law announced at Christmas dinner that she was taking my bedroom, and everyone at that table just laughed. My name is Catherine Walsh, and I'm 72 years old. I've lived in Portland, Oregon my entire life, in the same house my husband built with his own two hands 43 years ago. Before I tell you what happened, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. I'd love to know I'm not alone in this. This story begins on Christmas Eve, but really it started 6 months earlier when I buried my husband Robert. 50 years of marriage gone in a heartbeat. Massive heart attack at the hardware store. He was buying supplies to fix the porch railing because he knew winter was coming and he didn't want me to slip. That was Robert. Always thinking of others, especially me. After the funeral, my son Marcus and his wife Vanessa started coming around more often. At first I thought it was grief, a shared need to remember Robert together. Marcus would sit in his father's chair and we'd look through old photographs. Vanessa would make tea and pat my hand, telling me I didn't have to go through this alone. I should have seen through it. God, I should have seen it. The first hint came in July. Vanessa mentioned how big the house was for just one person. "All these stairs, Catherine," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "What if you fall? What if something happens and no one's here to help you?" I brushed it off. I was grieving, not incapacitated. I'd been climbing those stairs since I was 29 years old. Then in September, Marcus brought up the garage apartment. We'd built it years ago when Robert's mother needed somewhere to stay. It was nice. Small kitchenette, bathroom, bedroom, separate entrance. His mother had lived there for 3 years before passing, and since then, we'd used it for storage and the occasional guest. "That apartment's really useful, Mom," Marcus said one evening. If you ever needed help nearby, someone could live there and keep an eye on you." I told him I didn't need anyone keeping an eye on me. I was 72, not 92. I still drove myself to the grocery store, to book club, to church every Sunday. I volunteered at the library twice a week. My mind was sharp and my body was capable. But they kept pushing. Little comments here and there. "This house is too much for you. You shouldn't be alone. We're just worried about you, Mom." By December, I was exhausted from defending my own competence in my own home. And then came Christmas Eve dinner, the night everything exploded and showed me exactly who my family really was. Let me tell you what happened in that dining room, around the table Robert built under the chandelier he hung in the house he gave me. I'd been cooking for 3 days. Prime rib, just like Robert always made it. Yorkshire pudding from his mother's recipe. Roasted vegetables from our garden that I'd canned in August. Apple pie with lattice crust. The table was set with our wedding china, and I'd put fresh holly centerpieces at each end. Sat-to-tell. Marcus and Vanessa arrived first with their 2 teenagers, Kyle and Emma. My daughter Jennifer came next with her husband Paul. She lived 2 hours away in Seattle and didn't visit often, always claiming work was too demanding. Then came Robert's brother Tom and his wife Linda. 10 people around that table. 10 people who should have been my family, my protection, my comfort in the first Christmas without Robert. The dinner started normally enough. Everyone complimented the food. We shared memories of Robert, laughed at old stories. I actually felt warm inside for the first time in months. Maybe this Christmas wouldn't be as hollow as I feared. Then came dessert. I was cutting the pie when Vanessa cleared her throat dramatically. She had this look on her face. The one, like she was about to announce she'd won the lottery. "Catherine," she said, loud enough that all conversation stopped. "Marcus and I have been talking, and we've made a decision about the housing situation." I set down the pie server. "Housing situation?" She smiled. Not a kind smile, a satisfied smile. "We're going to move into the main house. You'll take the garage apartment. It makes sense, really. We need more space for the kids, and you don't need all these bedrooms anymore." The room went silent. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to tell his wife she'd lost her mind, but he was nodding, avoiding my eyes. "We've already measured," Vanessa continued. Our furniture will fit perfectly in the master bedroom. Kyle can take the guest room. Emma can have the room with the bay window. This house is really meant for a family, not one person rattling around in it. I couldn't breathe. This is my home. Vanessa laughed, actually laughed. Oh, Catherine, don't be dramatic. The garage apartment is lovely. You'll have your own space, your independence, and we'll be right here if you need anything. Really, it's the perfect solution. I looked around the table, waiting for someone, anyone to speak up. Jennifer was staring at her plate. Paul was suddenly very interested in his wine glass. Tom and Linda exchanged glances but said nothing. The teenagers were on their phones. I built this house with Robert, I said, my voice shaking. Every room, every... Mom, Marcus interrupted, finally looking at me. It's just practical. You're getting older. You can't maintain this place alone. We're doing you a favor. A favor. They were taking my home and calling it a favor. When would this happen? I heard myself ask. We were thinking after New Year's, Vanessa said brightly. That gives you a couple weeks to move your essentials to the apartment. We'll handle the rest. Then Tom laughed. It started as a chuckle, then grew louder. Classic Vanessa, always thinking ahead. And just like that, others joined in. Nervous laughter, uncomfortable laughter, but laughter nonetheless. Like this was all some amusing joke. No one defended me, not one single person. I don't remember finishing dessert. I don't remember saying goodbye to everyone. I just remember standing at my kitchen sink at midnight, washing the wedding china while tears dripped into the soapy water. They'd left a mess. Wrapping paper scattered across the living room floor, wine glasses on every surface. Someone had spilled gravy on the tablecloth Robert's mother had embroidered by hand. I cleaned it all, every single bit, because that's what I'd always done. Cleaned up after everyone, taken care of everything, made sure everyone was comfortable and happy. And where had it gotten me? My own son was planning to take my home. My daughter hadn't said a word in my defense. Robert's brother had laughed like it was all some amusing game. I sat in Robert's chair around 2 a.m, still in my Christmas dress. The house was dark except for the tree lights blinking red and green across the walls. Robert had put up that tree every year. He'd stand on the ladder while I handed him ornaments, each one with a story, a memory, a piece of our life together. What do? I whispered to the empty room, half expecting Robert to answer somehow. The silence was complete, just the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway and the distant hum of the refrigerator. I thought about calling someone, but who? Jennifer clearly wasn't going to stand up for me. My friends from book club would sympathize but couldn't actually help. My church group would pray, which was kind but not practical. Around 4 a.m, I went to the office, Robert's office, where he'd kept all our important papers. I pulled out the deed to the house. Robert and Catherine Walsh, it read. Joint ownership. Except now there was only Catherine Walsh, and apparently that wasn't enough to keep my own family from trying to push me into the garage like an unwanted piece of furniture. I thought about my options. I could fight them, argue, make a scene, but what then? Live in this house knowing my son resented me? Watch Vanessa redecorate my bedroom, sleep in my bed, erase every trace of the life Robert and I built? I could give in, move to the apartment, become the pathetic old woman they clearly thought I was. Live in the shadows of my own property while they hosted parties in my living room and sat in my chairs. Or I could do something else entirely, something they'd never expect. That's when I remembered the folder, the blue folder Robert had shown me 2 years ago. Just in case something happens to me, he'd said. I want to make sure the house can do some good if we're both gone. I found it in the bottom drawer under tax returns from 2019. Inside was information about the Pacific Northwest Veterans Foundation, a charity Robert had volunteered with for 20 years. He'd always said he wanted to do something significant for them, something meaningful. There were contact forms, donation information, and a handwritten note in Robert's precise writing. This house could house 5 veterans in their transition program. What a legacy that would be. I sat there holding that note as dawn broke over Portland, and I made my decision. Christmas morning. I didn't open presents. I didn't make the traditional breakfast casserole. I got dressed in my navy suit, the one I'd worn to Robert's funeral, and I drove to the office of David Chen, our attorney. His secretary seemed surprised to see me. "Mrs. Walsh, we're closed for Christmas, but Mr. Chen happened to be catching up on paperwork. Let me see if—" "It's urgent," I said. David appeared within minutes, concern written across his face. "Catherine, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" I walked into his office and closed the door. "I need to change ownership of my house. Today." He blinked. "Today? Catherine, it's Christmas. And this isn't something to rush into. Why don't you sit down and tell me what's happened?" So I did. I told him about the dinner, about Vanessa's announcement, about the laughter and the silence, and the absolute betrayal of sitting at that table while my own family planned to dispose of me. David's jaw tightened as I spoke. He'd known Robert well. They'd served on the Veterans Foundation board together. "They can't force you out of your home," he said carefully. "You have rights. This is your property." "I know that. But I also know what my life will become if I fight them. Marcus will make me the villain. Vanessa will play victim. I'll be the bitter old woman keeping her son from having a proper home for his family. I'll be isolated, resented, and still living in that house. But it won't feel like mine anymore. I pulled out the blue folder and set it on David's desk. Robert wanted this house to help veterans. He always said it was too big for just us, that it could do real good. I want to donate it to the Pacific Northwest Veterans Foundation. David leaned back in his chair. "Catherine, think about what you're saying. This is your home, your security. Where will you go?" "I have money," I said. Robert had been careful with our finances. We had savings, investments, and his military pension that transferred to me. "I can buy a nice condo downtown, something manageable. I'll be fine. Better than fine. I'll be free." "And Marcus? Vanessa? This will—" "Devastate them," I finished. "Good. Let them feel a fraction of what I felt last night." David was quiet for a long moment, and then he nodded slowly. "If this is really what you want, I can draw up the papers. The Veterans Foundation will need to approve acceptance of the donation, but Robert was one of their biggest supporters. They won't refuse. However, there will be a legal process. Your family currently living in the house will need proper notice." "How long?" 30 days minimum. It's legally required for eviction proceedings." "They're not living there yet," I said. "But yes, 30 days. I want them to know exactly what they've lost and why." David pulled out a legal pad. "Then let's get started. I'll call the foundation director as soon as we're done here. Catherine." He paused. "Robert would be proud of you." I wasn't sure about that, but I was sure about this decision. For the first time since Christmas Eve dinner, I could breathe. By December 27th, all the paperwork was signed. David worked fast. He understood that my resolve might waver if I had too much time to think. The Pacific Northwest Veterans Foundation accepted the donation with what their director called overwhelming gratitude and emotion. "Mrs. Walsh," Director Patterson said over the phone, "your husband spoke about this dream for years. To have it actually happen. To have this beautiful property available for our transitional housing program, it's beyond words. We'll honor both you and Robert's memory with how we use this gift. There are people currently expecting to move in," I told him. "They'll need to be notified and given 30 days. "We'll handle all of that legally and properly," he assured me. "This is unfortunately not uncommon in estate transitions. Do you want us to communicate directly with them, or would you prefer to tell them yourself?" I thought about that. The cowardly thing would be to let strangers deliver the news. Let lawyers and foundation representatives do the dirty work while I hid somewhere safe. But I wasn't feeling cowardly anymore. I was feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Powerful. "I'll tell them," I said. I called Marcus that afternoon. He answered on the third ring, sounding cheerful. "Hey, Mom, thanks again for Christmas dinner. Vanessa's been looking at paint colors for the master bedroom. She's thinking a soft gray, really modern—" "Marcus," my voice was steady. I need you, Vanessa and Jennifer, to come to the house tomorrow at noon. All of you together." His tone shifted. "Is something wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, I just have some news about the house." "Oh," his voice brightened again. "You've decided when you want to move to the apartment. That's great, Mom. We can help you pack this weekend if—" "Tomorrow at noon, Marcus. It's important." I hung up before he could respond. Then I called Jennifer. She was harder to pin down, claiming she and Paul had plans to hike the Cascades the next day. "Cancel them," I said. "Mom, what's this about? You're being weird." "You want to know what it's about? It's about you sitting silent at that dinner table while your brother and his wife announced they were taking my home. It's about none of you standing up for me. It's about decisions that affect all of you, and you'll hear about them tomorrow at noon." "Jesus, Mom, are you dying or something?" The question was so absurd I almost laughed. "No, Jennifer, I'm very much alive, maybe more alive than I've been in years. See you tomorrow." I spent the rest of that day organizing paperwork. David had prepared a folder for each of them, Marcus, Vanessa, and Jennifer, containing copies of the donation agreement, the transfer of deed, and the formal 30-day notice to vacate. I also printed out information about the Veterans Foundation's transitional housing program. I wanted them to see exactly what their greed had accomplished. 5 veterans at a time would live in this house, getting job training, counseling, support as they rebuilt their lives. Robert's dream would come true, just not the way any of us expected. Hey, that night I slept better than I had since Robert died. Tomorrow would be difficult. Tomorrow they'd be angry, shocked, possibly cruel. But tomorrow I'd be telling the truth, and the truth had power. They arrived separately. Marcus and Vanessa first, pulling up in their new Lexus SUV. Jennifer and Paul 20 minutes later. I watched from the window as they gathered on the porch, Marcus gesturing animatedly, probably speculating about what this meeting was about. I let them ring the doorbell twice before I answered. "Come in," I said. "Living room." Vanessa had a folder of paint samples. I could see them sticking out of her purse. The audacity was almost impressive. Once they were seated, Marcus and Vanessa on the couch, Jennifer and Paul in the armchairs, I remained standing. I'd planned this carefully. Body language matters. I was not going to sit below them like a subordinate in my own home. "Thank you for coming," I began. "I have news about the house." Vanessa smiled. "Oh, Catherine, if this is about the apartment, we've already been so patient." "The house has been donated," I said. Silence. Complete, utter silence. Marcus leaned forward. "What?" "I have donated this property to the Pacific Northwest Veterans Foundation. As of December 26th, I am no longer the owner. The foundation is. They will use it as transitional housing for veterans, which was your father's dream." You could have heard a pin drop. "Then, you what?" Vanessa stood up so fast she knocked over the paint samples. They scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. "You can't do that. We had plans. We've already—" "You had plans for my house without my permission," I said calmly. "I made plans of my own, with my permission." Marcus was shaking his head. "Mom, this is insane. You're not thinking clearly. You're grieving. You're confused. I am 72 years old, not senile. I am grieving my husband, not my mind, and I have never been more clear about anything in my life. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt invisible in your own life, if you've ever been dismissed by people who should protect you, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is for you, and I want you to hear how it ends." Jennifer finally spoke. "Mom, where will you live?" "I've purchased a condominium downtown. 2 bedrooms, beautiful view of the river. I move in next week." "You bought—" Marcus stood now too. "You made all these decisions without talking to us?" The irony was so thick I could taste it. "Like you talked to me before announcing you were taking my bedroom? At Christmas dinner? In front of everyone." Vanessa's face was red. "That was different. We were trying to help you." "No, Vanessa. You were trying to help yourselves. And not one person at that table stopped you. Not my son, not my daughter, not my brother-in-law. You all just laughed. I picked up the folders from the side table and handed one to each couple. Inside, you'll find all the legal documentation. The house transfer is complete and irreversible. You have 30 days from December 26th to remove any belongings you may have stored here. After that, the foundation takes full possession. Marcus was reading the papers, his face going from red to white. Mom, you can't. This was supposed to be our inheritance. Your inheritance, I said quietly, was supposed to be love, respect, and basic human decency. You chose not to claim it. Vanessa was the first to completely lose composure. She threw the folder on the floor, papers scattering everywhere. Do you have any idea what you've done? We told the landlord we were leaving. Kyle's school district, our entire life was planned around this move. Then you shouldn't have planned your life around something that wasn't yours, I replied. Marcus was still staring at the papers like if he read them enough times, the words would change. The foundation won't want to fight you on this, Mom. If we contest it, if we show you weren't in your right mind. I retained David Chen as my attorney. Every step was documented. I was evaluated as completely competent. You can try to contest it, Marcus, but you'll lose, and you'll spend a fortune in legal fees doing it. Jennifer was crying, actual tears running down her face. Mom, this is cruel. This is so cruel. That word, cruel, ignited something in me I'd been holding back. You want to talk about cruel? Let me tell you what cruel is. Cruel is losing your husband of 50 years and having your family circle you like vultures before he's cold in the ground. Cruel is planning for months to take someone's home and announcing it as a done deal at Christmas dinner. Cruel is sitting silent while your mother is humiliated and not saying one word in her defense. My voice was rising now, steady but strong. Cruel is laughing. Do you remember that part, Jennifer? Tom laughed, and you sat there. Your brother was stealing my home, and you sat there like it was none of your business. I didn't know what to say, Jennifer protested. How about no? How about that's not right? How about anything that acknowledged I'm a human being deserving of basic respect? Paul, who'd been silent this whole time, spoke up. Catherine, I think everyone's emotions are high right now. Maybe we should take a break and... No, I said, no breaks, no cooling off periods. You came here for information. You have it. What you do with it is your choice. Vanessa grabbed her purse. This isn't over. We'll fight this. We'll talk to other lawyers. You'll waste your time and money, I said. But that's your decision to make, just like this was mine. Marcus looked at me then. Really looked at me, and for a moment I saw my little boy. The kid who used to help his dad in the garage, who brought me dandelions and called them flowers, who cried in my arms when his first girlfriend broke his heart. Why? He asked, and his voice cracked. I'm your son. Yes, I said softly. You are, and I'm your mother, and you treated me like an inconvenience to be managed and stored away. So yes, Marcus, you're my son. I just wish you'd remembered I was your mother. They left, all of them. Vanessa was on her phone before she reached the car, probably calling lawyers just like she threatened. Jennifer was still crying. Paul looked embarrassed, though whether for himself or his wife, I couldn't tell. Marcus was the last one out. He paused at the door, turned back. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, I said, and you didn't care enough to stop. He left. The door clicked shut, and I was alone in the house Robert built. But I wasn't lonely, not anymore. The next 30 days were strange. Marcus called twice, once to apologize, though it felt hollow and desperate, and once to ask if I was really going through with this. I was. Jennifer sent a long email about family and forgiveness and how I was burning bridges. I didn't respond. Vanessa, true to her word, consulted 2 different attorneys. Both apparently told her the same thing David had told Marcus. The donation was legal, properly executed, and I was fully competent when I made it. She couldn't fight it without looking like she was trying to steal from veterans, which wouldn't play well anywhere. I spent those 30 days preparing for my new life. I went through the house room by room, deciding what to take and what to leave. The furniture would stay. The foundation needed it for the veterans. But I took photographs, Robert's watch, my mother's jewelry, books I couldn't part with. I took the quilt from our bed, the one Robert's mother made us as a wedding gift. I took the kitchen table where we'd eaten breakfast every morning for 40 years. It would fit in my new condo perfectly. I took Robert's favorite chair and the lamp he read by every evening. Everything else I left. Let it serve a purpose. Let it help people who actually needed help, not entitled people who wanted free real estate. My book club rallied around me. When I told them what happened, and I told them everything, there wasn't a dry eye at Mary's dining room table. "Catherine," she said, gripping my hand, "you're the bravest woman I know." I didn't feel brave. I felt exhausted and sad and occasionally terrified about whether I'd made the right choice. But I also felt free in a way I hadn't since Robert died. The director of the Veterans Foundation, Robert Patterson, visited me on day 23. He walked through the house with reverence, touching the walls like they were sacred. "We'll take good care of it," he promised. "The veterans who live here will know about Robert, about his service, about his dream. We'll put a plaque by the front door with both your names." "Just Robert's," I said. "This was his dream. I'm just making it happen." "Catherine, you donated your home. That's not just anything." On moving day, January 25th, a crew from the foundation helped me load the moving truck. Young veterans, strong and kind, who called me ma'am and handled my belongings like they were made of glass. One of them, a young woman named Sarah, helped me pack up the kitchen. "My mom's about your age," she said. "She's alone too since Dad passed. I worry about her." "Is she okay?" I asked. "Yeah, but I think she's lonely. Her family doesn't visit much." Sarah wrapped a mug in newspaper. "I'm going to tell her about you, about what you did. I think she needs to hear that being alone doesn't mean being powerless." That conversation stayed with me as I locked the door for the last time. I ran my hand along the door frame Robert had built, pressed my forehead against the wood, and said goodbye. Then I drove to my new condo on the waterfront where my new life was waiting. Marcus, Vanessa, and Jennifer didn't come to say goodbye. I didn't expect them to. My new condo was everything I needed and nothing I expected to love as much as I did. 10th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. 2 bedrooms, one for me, one for the guest I might someday want to host. A small kitchen where I could cook without the echoes of 40 years whispering from every corner. I decorated it slowly. Robert's chair by the window where the morning light was best. Our kitchen table in the dining nook. Photographs on the mantel, me and Robert on our wedding day, Marcus as a baby, Jennifer at her college graduation. I didn't erase them from my life. I just stopped letting them define it. The first week was the hardest. I'd wake up and forget where I was, reach for Robert in a bed he'd never slept in, listen for sounds that wouldn't come. But slowly, the condo became home. I learned which coffee shop on the corner made the best lattes. I found a new book club in the building. I started taking morning walks along the river. And I didn't hear from my children, not one word, until March. I was watering my plants when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mrs. Walsh? This is Sarah Hernandez. I'm one of the veterans who helped you move. I'm calling from the house, your old house." My heart jumped. "Is something wrong?" No, everything's wonderful. Mrs. Walsh, I'm living here. Me and 4 other vets. The foundation placed us in the transitional program, and I'm in the bedroom with the bay window, and it's the first place I've felt safe since I got back from deployment." I sat down slowly. "I'm so glad. I wanted you to know what this means, what you did. There's a woman here named Patricia who was living in her car. There's a guy named James who was couch surfing. Couldn't hold down a job because he had no stable address. We're all getting our lives back because you gave up yours." "I didn't give up my life," I said. "I just changed it." "Well, whatever you call it, thank you. We have a little ceremony planned for next week. We're unveiling the plaque by the door, the one with your husband's name. We'd love for you to be there." I went. Of course I went. Standing in front of the house Robert built, looking at the brass plaque that read, Robert Walsh House, in honor of service and sacrifice, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. The 5 veterans living there stood on the porch, and Sarah gave a speech about second chances and the power of one person's choice to change lives. They invited me inside, showed me how they'd arranged the furniture, how they'd turned Robert's office into a study room where they worked on resumes and job applications together. The house was alive again, full of purpose and hope and possibility. As I was leaving, I saw a car slow down across the street. I recognized it. Marcus's Lexus. He was watching. After a moment, he drove away. I didn't chase him. I didn't call out. Some bridges, once burned, need time before anyone can walk across them again. Maybe someday. Or maybe not. Either way, I was okay. It's been 8 months since I signed over the house. 8 months since Christmas dinner and the laughter and the silence that broke something fundamental between me and my children. I won't lie and say it doesn't hurt. It does. I'm a mother, and no matter what they did, they're still my children. I think about them often, wonder if Marcus ever really understood why I did what I did. Wonder if Jennifer tells her friends about her stubborn, difficult mother who gave away the family home. But I don't regret it, not for 1 second. The Veterans Foundation sends me quarterly updates. The Robert Walsh House has helped 12 veterans so far in the transitional program. Every single one has found stable employment and permanent housing after their time there. Sarah graduated from a coding boot camp and now works for a tech company downtown. James reconnected with his daughter after 5 years of estrangement. Patricia started a small business making furniture from reclaimed wood. Lives rebuilt, futures reclaimed, all from the house Robert built with his own hands. I received one letter from Marcus in June. Short, typed, formal. He said he'd had time to think, that he understood I felt disrespected, that he hoped eventually we could move forward. He didn't apologize, not really. It was the kind of letter someone writes because they think they should, not because they mean it. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Jennifer is a different story. She video called me last month, just out of the blue. She cried, real tears, not the manipulative kind from that day in January. She said she's been in therapy, working through family dynamics and her own complicity in what happened. She said she was ashamed she didn't speak up. I was so used to staying out of conflict, she said. I've always been the peacekeeper, you know, but there's a difference between keeping peace and keeping silent when someone's being hurt. We talk now, once a week. Careful conversations, rebuilding something that broke. It's not what it was. It might never be, but it's something. As for Vanessa, I saw her at the grocery store 2 weeks ago. She turned her cart around and went down a different aisle. That told me everything I needed to know. My life now is smaller in some ways, bigger in others. I have my condo, my morning walks, my book club full of women who've lived long enough to know that family isn't always blood and home isn't always where you started. I have Robert's memory, preserved not in a house moldering with resentment, but in a living, breathing place that helps people every single day. And I have myself, my dignity, my power, my choice. Would I recommend what I did to everyone in my situation? No. Every family is different. Every wound requires its own healing. But I will say this. No one should have to tolerate being treated as disposable in their own life. Not at 72, not at any age. I'm Catherine Walsh. I gave away my house, found my strength, and discovered that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to accept disrespect, even from the people you love most. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helped someone out there who needed to hear it.